right at it.
I'd like to start our meetings out with the pledge of allegiance. If everyone would join us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd just like to make sure that everybody that's here tonight gets in a sign-up sheet for our records. This meeting is a public hearing for the town board regarding local law number 1, 2017. And we will basically open it up to the floor for any discussion, any comments that anyone in the audience may have regarding the proposed law. The board will hear from you next Wednesday evening. We will reconvene at 5:30 for another public hearing. Okay, 5:30 to 6 o'clock. We'll have another public hearing at 6 o'clock. We will have a special meeting for the town board to make a vote on this law.
Okay, how can it be a public hearing? How can it be a public hearing? The law wasn't handed to you until after 9 o'clock last night.
We can have a public hearing on this.
Not
We can hear
legally.
people's comments.
It has to be on the board's desk for 10 days.
You're wrong.
No, it has,
I'm not going to argue with you this evening. I listened to you way more than enough last night.
you know
I'm
what?
not going to hear it tonight.
It is an illegal meeting. This is not a public
That's fine.
hearing.
Take it to your attorney and have him address it.
I already took it to the Department of State today.
Well, good.
It's against the
We're
law.
happy that you're out there and working
The
so
law
hard.
was not even written when the public hearing notice was posted.
Anybody have any comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Snell.
Two things. I would like to express my thanks to the planning board for the nice end product that they came up with. And the second thing is, I would urge the town board to accept that document as you have received it. I think that they've done a fine job, and I encourage you to accept that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else with comments for the board? Luke?
I'd also like to thank them. I know we've been bombarding them and the town board also with information, but it's because we want it to be the most informed law we can get. There are some things we'd like to change later, but we realize that time is of the essence, and we're hoping you will keep it open for other, tweaking, as they say, and also that you will consider working on our land use and development plan, which time keeps creeping up on us. We'd all like to just hang in there and do what we've always been doing, but we're not allowed to do that. The world keeps creeping up on us and pushing us. So thank you for your work, but we unfortunately, I think we still have some work ahead of us. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I would like to talk, I was thinking, I spend too much time on my own, and I was thinking about,
I don't know where you're going with
I think about the penalty phase. You guys got
for red number 1 here?
You guys got a penalty of, what, $350 a week? Okay, why is that not per windmill? And they make a sensor, or I don't know exactly what it's called. You can buy it for like $50 on Amazon, and with an app in a smartphone, you can take this. You can take measurements of the noise, decimal levels of the noise, and then if they took a picture of that, a sensor, a reading, once every 10 minutes, 1 minute for every 10 minutes, which is supposed to be, the law. You're supposed to be not over for a 10-minute period. They can send a picture of that to you guys and just send a fine out, because the state troopers can do that if you're speeding down the road. That way you wouldn't have somebody running the road all the time with a, you know, you wouldn't get called at 2 o'clock in the morning. People could do it on their own, and then take about 2/3 of that money and give it to the person that's being disturbed. No, seriously. What's the sense of having any laws when you have if they're too noisy, you get a $350 fine a week, which is less than $19,000 a year. That's a joke for a penalty. They're not even they don't even have to adhere to anything.
I'm sure it's definitely something we'll look into, John, because
Okay.
Chances are the state's gonna want their portion of that $350 too, so it's gonna be even less than that.
Then raise it up to 500.
As Luke mentioned, this is something that's gonna be an ongoing process.
Right.
The planning board, just because they've handed this revised law over to the town board to review and to make a vote on next week, it doesn't mean that we're done with this. Luke made a very good point. Our entire land use and development, several laws in the town need to be addressed, and the planning board has every intention of continuing on this. Lori?
I also would like to thank everyone who's worked so hard on the wind law. I would also like to give you a new list. We now have over 700 signatures, and it is continuing to grow. So I just wanted to let everybody know that this is representing, you know, the efforts that we've been trying to work with the town and the planning board. It's not just for a small group, it's for a large contingent.
Can I ask, are these signatures all residents of the town of Parishville?
It's Parishville and Hopkinton.
Parishville, huh?
Right, because it's a one project, right? It's a Northridge project, so I didn't, but I've got addresses.
I didn't know if perhaps communities outside of our area were also.
There may be one or two that are outside, but I think the majority at least have property here.
All the people on the pilot, opposed to the pilot, are residents or taxpayers. People requesting a moratorium may live in adjoining communities.
But not a very
Or be
small.
people who will inherit property here or have an interest in work or enjoy recreating here. Is that a word, recreating?
Sure, sounds good to me.
I don't know what sounds.
Anybody else with comments for the board? Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask about I mean, it's probably really late in the process and I haven't been here and stuff, but this 2,500 feet setback, is everybody happy with that? Is that considered liberal, conservative? How did you come up with that number?
We didn't come up with that number, the planning board did.
Yeah, how did they?
And actually, as we look at that, I believe there's still, I think it's page 18, language in there that suggests 5 times the height of the wind tower.
Yeah.
One of the things I know that they were taking into consideration years ago when the original wind law was developed, they were looking at towers that were probably around 300 feet high, I believe. With the towers that are proposed now for this project at 500 feet, and hearing that there's other projects that are looking at towers that are 600 feet tall, they took into consideration that there need to be larger setbacks than originally determined.
So the ones that are listed in this current law are basically the ones for a 300-foot tower, but then extrapolated for a 500?
Correct.
So are those considered to be generous? I mean, are people who are within that distance of a 300-foot tower satisfied with that?
Well, it's to the side of the property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on where their house is on their property.
Huh?
So how far the windmill would be from their house would depend on where
Right.
their house
If
is
they're that
on their
close,
property.
Yeah.
Property.
Their line,
Right, their
yeah.
line.
It depends on how close they are to their property line. Like you and I, obviously, it's not gonna make much of a difference. It's gonna be like 10 feet more,
Yeah,
but,
it's really close.
yeah.
So it can't be made farther back?
We've been trying for
We've been
9 months.
Oh, that's what I was wondering, but you said you're,
The community, the concerned citizens started asking for a mile, and there's a thing over there about other places that have
If you
miles.
direct your comments up here, it would be
Sorry.
great.
On the side table
Side
is-
conversations can go to the
Yep.
parking lot.
On the side table is a list of other areas that have a 1 mile or more setback, and I hope people will pick it up.
To answer your question further too, when you're looking at that 2,500 feet or 5 times the height, we have to keep in mind that, the planning board had to keep in mind that they had to be reasonable too. Okay? They couldn't throw a huge number out there and say, this is what we want, that's not even realistic, for such a project as what's being proposed.
If it's too burdensome, that's when Article 10 comes in, sits us down, and says, this is too burdensome, so what are you really gonna live with? You know what I'm saying? So,
They didn't do that with Cape Vincent. They agreed that their 1 mile setback was reasonable.
Kelly? Yeah.
Yeah, I just would like to say, Avangrid displays an arrogant contempt for the wishes of the majority. And it's time for our town board to stand behind us and rid ourselves of this travesty. When you say that Article 10, may sit you down and say, this is too much. That's when we've given you tons and tons of information. I believe that we can back it up. So I'm just asking, I think the Wind Advisory Board did a great job. You spent a lot of time and energy going into it, and I'm happy with what you put out, but now I think it's time for, our towns to really, stick up for us. The majority of people in both towns don't want them. And to say publicly, which I already have in Hopkinton, Mr. McDonald said to me at the open house that they want happy towns. And if the majority of people in the towns did not want the windmill, he said they would gladly leave. That's what Mr. McDonald said, and he's never denied that conversation. So I'm just saying, here we are, we've come meeting after meeting. We have all of the signs, things, and I'm just asking, the board to, really look at this. This really is a travesty. You're given information from them. It's the same information over and over. So just take a look at that. The information you get from them is the same information over and over. The information that you get from the concerned citizens is from various, sources all over the world. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Again, I would like to thank the planning board. Last night, Tim Moore did a great job of receiving so much information and trying to weed through it and do the best they could for us, and as well as knowing that we are going to need to look at this again in the future. I just would like to bring up the 500 foot. I know there's different places where there's possible variances in the law. I know Mr. McDonald has stated at one of the previous planning board meetings that they aren't looking at going above 500 foot, but other projects from Iverdale as well as other wind companies around have stated that at this part of the process and then go to the clause that they put in the PSS, which is in the PSS right now, that they will use the most current technology. So at the time of their application, if their most current technology is taller than that, they may say, well, we told you in the PSS we could go higher. So I just hope that the language, the way it's written in the law, that that's not something that can be varied, that the town has it at 500 foot. Also, with Article 10, please remember that the Siting Board, one, has never convened. Well, other than the fact when they convened in 2011 to be sworn in. They have never, ever met for any official duties since then, and we're now in 2017. They themselves are not going through our law. So as long as the town has backup, and you have plenty of of information that backs up the things that the planning board suggested. Then if the developer chooses to point something out and create essentially like a hearing on that, then you have the backup for that. Your planning board got tons of information, you do have it. So what's in the law, please don't be afraid that you're being too restrictive, and if the siting board is going to be looking at it, because they're only looking at it if the developer has to make basically a court case about a particular section. And also, please remember that right on their Facebook page, as well as in the PSS, they do state that with proper setbacks, there's not adverse health effects. So that means the inverse is true. Without proper setbacks, there are adverse health effects. So please keep that in mind as you are reading through all this information. Thank you.
Yeah,
Just one more thing I want to mention. You got to realize that they are not going to follow rules. They're already surveying south of 72. I've seen it myself. So you got to make sure that every dot on every I is dotted and every T is crossed. They are professional marketers. This is our first time and hopefully our last. And they're good. They're paid to do this stuff. And that's all I want to say.
he probably could have just stopped with their good, right?
Unfortunately, our governor is paying them well to do this, so.
That's our next
We're
tax.
fighting him, guys. I mean, we just bought a bunch of tax, credits the other day, so.
Yes, ma'am.
That's why I think a moratorium is really important, and we should still try to do that, because as we have that time, if it's a year, legislation could change, subsidies could change. That would give us time to really get an idea of what's happening. Plus, more towns are stacking up with complaints. Chateaugay has plenty of complaints. I mean, last week I read a whole bunch of new stuff on them online of locals having issues. So as that stacks up, someone's going to have to listen to it. People are going to listen to it. Papers are going to listen to it. Buy us this year so that we can hear what other people are saying, so we don't become them. Give us a little time so we can make sure these setbacks are better and the noise limitations are better. We deserve this time.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a couple of comments. 6-7 years ago, there's a farm show in Syracuse, and we went down to see the private windmill for a farm. And there was 3 different people selling them, and I went to 2 of the different places, and they had me point on the map where we were located, and said like our wind speed was like 9.2 miles an hour. They said, we'd love to sell you one, but you only got 2/3 the wind it takes to make it pay for itself. I went across the place and talked to another guy, and they told me the same thing. And earlier this winter, when Jen was here, I asked her what the wind speed was from these test towers, and that was private information. In other words, you only have about 2/3 of the wind you need to make the thing pay for itself. That's why you're going so high. And they don't mind doing this because there's billions of dollars of government subsidy to go to the wind tower people. I called Elise up there, Steinfeld from Washington, about 3 months ago, and asked her about their government subsidies. And they weren't sure, but I got a call from Rick Perry's office an hour later and said government subsidies are all done in 2020, but all they have to do to get it is to have started construction in 2020. And the other thing, for 2-3 months ago, we board members got a nice white notebook from everybody from the wind table, and there was 50 pages in it, and of those 50 pages, the print in those was so fine you'd have to use the magnifying glass to read it. And I just got new glasses 3 months ago, and I could hardly read the stuff. So if you folks, Dan and the crew, want us to read it, and reprint it and give us like 250, 300 pages, look at some of it. I can't see any, can't read any of the stuff you gave us.
The idea, sir, was to recognize that it was out there. So you're absolutely right, it was small print, but it was the idea to make sure that you understood this document was available. And it's readily available
So
online.
if you want me to read it, give me, take it.
I'll make it for you.
Or pay one of his grandkids to read it to him.
There you go.
What's the web address? I want to read it.
Lauren?
I'm sorry to, but I do have one question. There was one sentence that was put into the law to protect people, like the 700 people that we've had sign that. And then, for some reason, Roger Linden recommended that it be taken out. And I would like to request his reasoning for that. It was just saying, it just kind of protected this law, that it would be upheld. And it just said, this law supersedes all commercial, industrial, and private agreements affecting any aspects of this law, except as specified in this law. To me, that was a good statement. It gave the planning board, it gave them the ability to control what happens in this town. By taking that sentence out, there can be so many side agreements that you are not aware of that would take away from the setbacks, that would take away from the DBA levels. They have things called good neighbor agreements, they have host community agreements, they have a lot of burden back studies. Any of those could be constituted as a condition without that sentence in there. And I just really feel that that was important.
I'll try to answer that in a couple minutes. I gotta find the responsible.
Luke's hand was up first. Sorry about your mouth.
Sorry. So as part of that same thing, one thing that we may want to look at in the future is correcting a definition for participating property. At this point, there are agreements that are that do not have to be listed at the county, and they are the burden bad agreements or the good neighbor agreements, which we have been told do not exist yet, but we have a strong suspicion they may. So that would be one definition that we would like cleaned up to state if what it says now is, and there's one little error in there too. It says it's under participating property, and it defines that as a real property in the wind, and overlay is left out of that description for one thing. The wind zone that has a contract with the wind developer or something to that effect. And we would like that to state a turbine or transmission contract. Because these other ones could undermine and subvert our law with its setback by changing the definition of what the property lines are, by pushing the property lines out from a turbine property.
I would like to have the website for that book that you have. Could we have that website?
It's just a DPS site.
I just want to see which one you're referring to.
It's just the text on Article 10, that's all it is.
Can I just have the website?
I don't know by heart, but I'll send it to you.
Okay, great. In my mail or
With that?
in your mail, or how are you going to send it?
Lucas, I just heard Lucas.
Okay.
Mr. Martin?
Avangrid just gave me 4 copies of that.
There you go. There you
To
go.
be shared.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a question under the law, but just as in part of the process.
has the town or either town requested that they be notified from the developer when they notify the FAA for putting up either Met towers or their actual tower, the sites for their towers, because there's a whole separate permit and different studies that the FAA has to do before they can do it on the FAA website. There is a whole section just on wind turbines. I did not, I was told that there was stuff for Northbridge on there. I couldn't find it myself. So therefore I did not see anything about the Met towers that are currently up listed on there. And I didn't see for myself, I was told, again, I was told someone else had found it, but I had not seen it for myself of when theirs is there. But I know for other projects that they are working on, they're listed. So I don't know if you're aware of it, that has to go through the FAA. Besides Article 10 stuff, there is a whole separate thing with FAA, and they have to be notified, and there's a whole separate permit.
We did hear that last time.
Okay. And then also, as far as if they do come and their roads are being closed, at the county meeting, they mentioned that they mentioned something about roads. It was one of the comments or issues they said there. But they went on to say that there's separate county highway or separate highways and kind of level permits that are needed for that. And the question was, are the towns aware of those permits that are needed? And the answer was, well, they should be. So I'm sure you are, but just bring it up that.
And we are, both
Awesome.
towns have been meeting with the county on a regular basis.
Great, sounds good.
Throughout this process. Anybody else for comments?
Yeah, in response to Lord's question there, about the sentence that we added in our draft 3 and deleted. The town has a town attorney, and they also have a second attorney for advice who's very well versed in immune law. He's represented towns in a similar situation as us, and this was his recommendation. The proposed ordinance defines participating as having a contract with the wind company. It is true that participating landowners do not explicitly benefit from the minimum setback from their property boundary, as do non-participating landowners. However, the turbines must be set back from residences, whether they are participating landowners or not. The proposed text is certainly confusing, and I doubt is legally enforceable in its attempt to avoid existing contracts between private parties, even when they are consistent with the local law. A legal bucket of snakes. Recommendation, remove it. So we have the recommendation from 2 attorneys to remove it, which we did.
Thank you.
That language was done by an attorney, by the way, who helped another town, St. Vincent.
St. Vincent has it in their law.
Well,
You don't, no, but I'm just saying, it wasn't something that we drew up one Saturday afternoon.
We anticipated your question last night.
Yeah.
And we did it, but I did read what I just read. I read that last night, because I did anticipate a question on that. However,
Might not
the
have
town
heard it.
has hired these attorneys. They got to take their recommendations, and I didn't know exactly where the text I was given came from. We added it, and the other attorneys didn't like it, so.
Yeah, it was St. Vincent.
On the advisory attorneys, we removed it.
It's the developer's attorney.
Pardon?
Do we have to go by that advice?
No,
Can we avoid it?
no, we don't have to, but there's 5 of us on the planning board, and we figured attorneys are smarter than we are.
But now that you know where that came from,
Pardon?
perhaps you could look into that, now that you know that it came from.
You could, but there again, you know, we have 32 pages of documents that we're dealing with. What would you do? You got,
I probably would have done the same thing, but now that I know where it came from, perhaps you could take another, couple hours and just look into it.
Maluski is a,
there again. the town board
Maluski
could take a
represents
couple more hours.
We like this sideline.
Rod, Hopkinton also, when Jody brought that up at the Hopkinton Wind Advisory meeting before the last one they had, it wasn't necessarily for good neighbor agreements. He was wanting to add, include that language because of what he was seeing in Chattagay, of how the developer is saying that the host neighbor agreement and the pilot agreement and whatever is superseding their law, and they're not able to get their litigation over getting that, or possible litigation over getting additional sound testing. And so the reasoning that board gave that they were putting it in didn't have anything to do with what Lori mentioned. It had to do with what we're seeing in Chattagay about those other type of documents are being told that they're negating the wind law and they're not getting that sound stuff. So that's just another angle of why.
And maybe another one of them things that as we move forward with this law and with all the others that we'll be working on, that just finding the right place for it within the law is part of what we're dealing with. I know there was a couple of things there that we had to move things, pages, because they were just located in this.
I think the purpose of this local law is to promote the effective and efficient use of the town's land energy resources through wind energy conservation systems, and to regulate the placement of such systems so that the town public health, safety, welfare, and environment will not be jeopardized. Now that's what the planning board was purpose, and it says purpose. The town board of the town of Parishville adopt this local law to promote what I just said. But if you read between the lines, and if the town board, from their experience, will probably tell you, another purpose of this law is to keep the town from getting sued, right? And that's what they have to look for. It's not written in this document, but it's kind of understood.
Of course.
All kind of goes together. Yes.
So, if we're making any changes, we have to push this law out, right?
No, we made some changes last night, you can make some changes tonight.
I can make some changes tonight.
But then you have to have another 7 days before you can vote. And because we made these changes last night, you have to have 7 days from now before you can vote.
In which case, we would just set another meeting.
But we want to vote on it.
If we can.
Is there, is it because of the...
Filing deadlines, the attorneys want to make sure that.
We're done for staying forward, right? So this is a good work in progress.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand. Every time we do one of these local laws, you guys confuse me. We change something and then we have to meet about 6 more times and I'm like, okay, what's my deadline here? Okay. So we know we still have work to do, but we want to get this in place. Okay. I'm just trying to understand.
Any more comments? Yes, ma'am. Beth.
On page 22, section E, financial assurance for the decommissioning of the board, of the decommissioning bond or fund. Historically, wind companies have gone bankrupt and reappeared in another name. So a letter of credit doesn't really, they open an escrow account. It's kind of like a dog who wants to be paid, goes out of the room and comes back and it's a different dog. I don't know if you can do that. That may be one of your limitations. But letters of
Yeah,
credit.
we've got in section 2.11E, yeah, we do ask for a bond.
It says, the financial assurance may be in the form of a letter of credit, a bond, escrow account, parent guarantee, or other form.
It says financial assurance for decommissioning bond or fund.
Right, but a letter of credit doesn't, because the entity will change and the letter of credit. will change. Historically, it would happen.
Yeah, we got, in section 2.11E, we do ask for a bond. It says financial assurance for decommissioning bond or fund.
Yeah, a letter of credit, that should be taken right out of that sentence.
Yeah. If you can do it.
You can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
We'll just list all of our
We have
several
$1,000
possible
in escrow for
options.
surveying out.
Hey, anybody else? Yes, sir, that's right.
Scott McDonald, Avangrid Renewables. Thank you for the opportunity. One thing I'm hearing is there appears to be perception that you've got to get this done right away. And, in the PSS, I think Fred has even made reference to page 161, which says you have to consider what your revised local law is. It's clear that we have to do that. So, I'm understanding that you're getting some legal guidance on this, but the process, like you're saying, the process goes on. So the idea that you have to rush to get something done is in our view, is not correct. You've got time, to understand all the issues. So maybe just take a look at that. So again, this isn't a rush to get this done. I think it's still a process. And if you find changes and you make them, it's not detrimental to any part of the process. Just want to make some comments. There's been a great deal of misinformation about our proposed project and wind development in general, and should be addressed in the official record. Materials submitted by Atlantic Wind in the form of peer-reviewed studies, reports, and also presentations like last night show that properly cited wind energy development will not result in negative health and safety impacts. Despite this fact, the proposed local law has been revised several times to incorporate more restrictive requirements that don't have any basis in science, do not provide the public any greater protection, and have no apparent purpose other than to create an obstacle to the development of wind energy in Parishville. This approach hurts landowners who want to participate in wind energy development, and the larger community stands to benefit from the proposed project. The latest version of the proposed local law provides a maximum sound pressure level of 35 dBA during the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. the following day. The ambient sound level in many locations within this town will be out of compliance if this standard was adopted. In addition, the standard is not based on any peer-reviewed studies and is not proposed as part of any larger plan to regulate noise from any other commercial use or sources of sound throughout the town. As noted recently by the St. Lawrence County Planning Board, there are a number of permitted uses that Fred read throughout the town that exceed these thresholds, including but not limited to forestry, mining and mineral processing operations, and farm operations. There's no reason why wind development to be subject to overly restricted levels when other commercial uses are not. The requirement to measure sound levels at non-participating boundary lines instead of the non-participating residents is also unduly burdensome. Constructions of the turbines will take place primarily on remote wooded areas or in the middle of farm fields, generally away from residences. The purpose of the sound limit is to prevent sleep disturbance and minimize annoyance and complaints, which is the basis for the limits in the first place, and also supported by the scientific literature provided to the board. And there is no rational reason to measure sound levels at the property line. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
Just a comment on Scott's first remark. The longer you delay, the more opportunity they have to use the old law. Remember that, and that's their goal, to be able to use the old law, not your revised law. So I urge you to move forward and get your revised law in place. Thank you.
Got a comment? So the old law stands, your current law has 2,000 feet from residences, and also it has, I believe it's 500 feet.
1,200 feet from residents.
Yeah.
No, it's 2,000. 2,000 feet. And which the difference is, and we've designed the wind plant to 2,000 feet from residence right now. We actually, in our internal setbacks, are greater to property lines than you have in your current law. The difference is that your current law has 45 dBA at the property line. We cannot build this plant at 45 dBA at the property line. And I think that everything that we've presented to the board and the planning board supports our view that that is not necessary from health and safety, and I think we heard that last night. And again, in the package of information that we provided to boards, also to the planning boards, and also to CCRP. We can only build this project at 45 dBA at the residence. So the point is that we cannot build under the current local law. So that is not a correct statement.
Not a problem.
Yeah,
We're good with that.
I'd like to have our own scale sit outside our lawn without having a screen.
Laura?
Yes, I agree with Gary that we need to pass this law because it is evident that they do not intend to go by the new law because they know that it's been 2,500 feet for a month, and yet on their site plan or whatever, they're using the old setbacks for Hopkinton and Parishville. So they say they're going to comply with the new law, but I agree. Put it through. If we have to do a second one later on, do a second one. But this is better than what's on the books, and we thank you for your efforts to protect everybody.
Everything you said, I hear what you're saying, and I know where it's coming from, and I just wanted to say that overly burdensome. This whole thing is overly burdensome to all of the locals that don't want it. And going to every meeting as I have for both towns and reading thousands of pages is overly burdensome. I have a family, and this is crazy. And I'm having to scrape to try to find a way to protect my family. This is overly burdensome. I have read so many studies, watched so many YouTube videos, read so many articles that I am full up to my ears with information. And as far as peer review, that is not a respectful thing anymore. It's so diluted. There's no integrity in industry anymore, manufacturing and companies. This isn't anything to be listened to as the gospel anymore. It's infiltrated. People aren't living ethically. So we can't depend on other people and peer review studies for people who have lots of money. When the people that are losing have no money, the people in Chattagay that are saying that these things are happening, they're not saying it for money, they're saying it because they've lost everything. And I have read so many towns where this is happening, and those voices are not being heard, and everybody keeps talking about peer reviews, but if you listen to Nina Pierpont, everything around the world that she studied, it makes sense. It's real. I mean, this is going beyond. Just keep doing what you're doing. Try to be as restrictive as possible, and we will help you fight this. We are going to fight it for our children. And if it means that we lose and we have to go to court, we'll have to find a way because it's for the children. We have to do the best for our children. This is not the best. And if they can't be in because of the 45 dBA, so be it. Because really, even 35 dBA is too high. That is beyond the concession. It's disgusting. I mean, it makes me sick. It makes spit come up in my mouth. My dBA at my house is between 15 and probably 25, if that, at night. Why would 35 not be noticeable? And infrasound, you would feel it. And the other thing is they're not measuring inside of our houses, as it's stated. So we're not going to have a before ambient reading. We're not going to have a before reading in our house of the dBA. We have no protection. In law, if we go in there with no prior reading, we have no protection against post-reading. That's the way that it is. And we have no protection other than this wind law and what we do with it. We have to be as strict as possible and not fall for this nonsense.
Yes, sir.
Evening, board members. My name is Chris Olson. I'm a health consultant to Avangrid, and I had the pleasure of speaking with your planning board last night. Just two things I'd like to point out. and I know that they're gonna be controversial, but if I look at the letter that the board received from the county planners, there's two areas that I'd like to point out to you. The first is on page 4 of that letter, when they're referring to the noise standards and the current proposed number of 35 decibels at night. And the county planners have stated that the Public Services Commission Siting Review Board may determine the strict noise standard to be an unreasonable regulation. Similarly, if you follow to the next page, on the setback issue, as they go through and they describe, and then they go on to state that these setbacks nearly eliminate all locations from overlay districts from commercial wind development and could be determined as unreasonable by the Public Service Commission Review Board. So just a couple of thoughts and notes, as I said last night to the planning board. If we do look at the international science, if we do look at standards that are used around the world, if we look at the World Health Organization numbers, 45 decibels at nighttime, and a setback that would be give or take 1,800 feet to 1,800 to 2,000 feet from the home itself is a reasonable standard. It does ensure the protection of health, both from the sound standpoint, from infrasound, from low frequency noise, from things like ice throw, plate failure, and the like. I'm involved in a number of other projects around the state of New York right now that are also undergoing Article 10. If on all of those projects, to the best of my knowledge, people are designing to a 45 decibel out of residence, non-participating residents, as the standard that they intend to put forward to the state under Article 10, while trying to respect the local laws and ordinances. And the state, frankly, is still wrestling with what that number should be. But it appears that they're landing on the 45 decibels. So I guess I would caution, or not caution, urge the board to maybe consider when you're putting your final regulation in place that 45 decibels in a setback of 2,000 feet, or give or take, 4 times turbine height would be sufficient to protect the health of the residents and the neighboring.
Kelly, you have your hand up.
Now, Avangrid is just displaying their contempt for our town. I mean, we have, you put forth things that you want, and they continue to keep telling you different, and disregard, and they're going south of 72 right now and doing all of their testing, and they're also, he made comment that, the setback, didn't matter how long it took. Then why, if you go to the public comment site, then why are all the pro-wind people commenting the old wind law, 1,800 feet setback and 45 decibels? It's like they were given that to say. Each one of them says that. So that just didn't jive right there. I mean, he's saying one thing, but what they're really doing is completely different. So again, I'm just asking the board to please look what your town wants, not this company, because we're what matters. We're living here. Thank you.
Gary, you have your hand up.
Just want to remind the town board that what you just heard from this gentleman was a paid advertisement.
I just think a lot is going to be cleared up. Our group intends to have our own ambient sound testing done, and it won't be with things next to a snowmobile trail or next to a timber, a mineral mining operation or whatever. I mean, and the fact is, like we said last night, those things are not operating at night. They're not cutting trees in the woods at night, and they aren't getting gravel loads 24/7. So that's just like not even up for discussion. But the thing is, once we get our own ambient levels, I think it'll be eye-opening how low it actually is here. And as Mr. Ambrose said, most rural areas, the ambient sound is about 27 dBA. So, and if you're increasing it, you're doubling it with every 10 dBA, that's a big variation in noise level. So I think that will be helpful to the board to see why 35 is so crucial at night. Thank you.
Ms. Randy?
I believe, I don't have my notes in front of me, but I believe both lawyers told me that, one said definitely they would need it before they had the citing permit to have this law, and I believe the other one told me before the application. So there is a bit of a rush here. And the second thing is, may I ask Mr. Olson a question?
You can ask the board.
Okay.
You can approach the board.
Yeah.
I believe that Iberdola, or one of the very variety of names that Iberdola goes by, is either White House Wind Project or Horse Creek Project, correct?
Sir, that would be best asked of Mr. McDonald.
If you want to have a conversation
Horse
with
Creek.
with
Horse
these
Creek.
One of
guys.
those projects is,
Horse Creek.
and we just heard that there, other projects aren't going for 35. They are. So, and they're involved with one of those, I believe it's Horse Creek.
It is, yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I don't know if anybody read those proprietor future books that Conrad couldn't read because writing's too small, but I just got a few of those today, and I opened up the book and I was looking a little bit, and I seen in there that the state of Oregon thinks that the average nighttime ambient noise level is 27 dBA, and they said at no time should it exceed 10 dBA more than the ambient level. That's the state of Oregon. That was in their book.
I wasn't going to speak tonight, but, and I'll try and keep it quick. It's quite a contentious issue here, and I'm really glad to see people from both sides educating themselves on this matter and bringing their voices forward. The ones that really deserve some credit are the planning board members from all the towns in the county. They've really done a lot of work. I think they've got a good wind law in place. And as Fred said, they're trying to promote the general health and welfare of the citizens. Terry said it, the governor's pushing this. This is 50-30, 50% green by 2030. I think it's important to accept this local law as written at this time. Just my opinion.
Thank you. Okay, we got about 5 minutes left here, so anybody else?
I've had my hand up for a while.
Go ahead, right over here.
Kathy McKay. 35. The answer is 35. I asked a certified acoustic engineer, not a gentleman who went to a military academy and has a PhD. I asked the certified acoustic engineer, well, they want 45. He said, you will all be sick. I said, well, okay, how about if I just get those earmuffs that you wear when your chain's on, and I'll just wear those around my house, outside in the yard, and that's how I'll live with the noise. And he said, it won't work because of the low frequency noise. He said, the only thing that will protect you is a subwoofer. I had to look that up. I think if I hear the analogy to a refrigerator or an air conditioner.
That word that you had to look up, he's got to tell the rest.
Thank you, Rod.
It's a grave.
It's what?
Oh.
A grave.
Great.
SEPULCHRE. The analogy of the air conditioner and the refrigerator seems to make it so benign. If you were to put a refrigerator on a 500-foot pole, I bet it wouldn't bother me either. So there must be something different going on. Thank you.
Somebody in the back there have their hand up.
I've spoken to the county planners and to the people in the property office, and we are the first in St. Lawrence County Darren Coleman, head of real property, said, well, I wouldn't want one next to my house, but we're all looking at you. So it's great that we're having this discussion, but the county planning office and real property office, it's new to them too.
Yes, sir.
Dan, let me ask you a question. Why did your company want a pilot program instead of being assessed on a regular basis like all the other industrials in town? Why should you have that privilege?
Of a pilot?
Yeah. No, I'm asking you, Dan.
You know, the understanding here is this is a comment, this is a
time.
comment session, so, you know, we're having talks about this in fact, and I would appreciate it if we could just.
Struck, you're out. That is something, that are conversations that we are currently having with Avangrid. I will fill you in on that myself.
The gentleman who was here last night from Ellenburg, the people who were here, who heard him speak, he seemed very sincere, very genuine, said never in his life had he been sick and had headaches. He's going to have to move out of his home. He can join Kevin Sigourney. But in the same token, speaking of the pilots and no real true answer there, he said his taxes hadn't gone down 10 cents, if you remember that. So if everybody thinks it's going to be a big windfall in this area for taxes, it's not. Case closed.
And I guess I'm going to speak anyway. Leonard's taxes went up 6% the first year. I saw them. I knew them. I was working with them. And again, I hear this time and time again when I come here. I do have standing in this project. I will see these blades if they are put up. That gives me standing legally. Okay? We also have a lot of experts coming with the Article 10 process that are sincere experts. They're non-biased, and the things that they're saying would be shot down. You're saying, well, Maluski, who represents developers, is recommending this. So you're going to take his recommendation.
Okay, we're done right there because I'm not going to let
Just a
you
minute.
talk about somebody that's not here. We're done.
No, we're not.
Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? I make a motion.
And you're not listening. You're not listening to the people.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.
And you're not listening to the people.